Hi, I'm Zachary Cowan, the author of the Steady Daily Books, and thanks for joining me for a look at Doctrine and Covenants, section 63, part 2. So last time we talked about the whole idea of signs versus belief, and that if you have faith and belief first, then signs will come. Well, long ago, when Jesus Christ was confronted with a group of people, Matthew chapter 16, verse 4, and they said, "Show us a sign, prove to us that you're Messiah," he said, "It is an adulterous generation that seeketh after signs." It's kind of a weird connection, that if you're a sign seeker, then sometimes that's the same attitude that inhibits adultery. Well, knowing this led to an interesting occasion in Philadelphia at one point. When Joseph Smith was there preaching, there was a man there. And as Joseph was preaching, a man raised his hand and said, "Show us a sign, give us a sign that you're a prophet, that there's a God." And Joseph said, "Be still." And then after the meeting, the man continued. Joseph paused for a moment and then finally said, and pointed at the very man who'd been doing that and said, "You, my friend, are an adulterer." Somebody else in the crowd said, "It's true, we've caught him before." And then the man confessed that he was, and was then later baptized. All right, so what is this connection then? There's a connection that happens. See, when a person commits adultery, they're wanting the pleasure of being in a committed relationship without the commitment. They're wanting to go ahead and have the satisfaction of those relationships without the rest of it, without the struggle, without the going through it together, without the commitment, without the marriage, without that. That's the same mentality that a sign seeker has, that they want proof before they make a commitment. Whereas if we exercise faith, then there will be a commitment. Well, as the Latter-day Saints in section 63 are struggling with the spirit of sign seeking, what other sin would they maybe be struggling with? And we learn in verses 13 and 14 that they're also struggling, or that many people are struggling with adultery. Now, this idea of struggling with adultery doesn't mean that they're all going out and sleeping around. In fact, look at verse 16. The Lord's definition of adultery is they're doing it in their heart. They're not controlling their imaginations and their heart on this thing, because they're giving way to their lusts. And the Lord's promises in verse 16 that then we won't have the Spirit with us. Now, there is a difference. And what do you think the difference is between lust and attraction? I think it's totally normal for people to find other people attracting. And yet the Lord is saying, control that. Don't lust. Control your imaginations. Control those things. Don't go after those things. And we can see that this is a dangerous thing, especially when we consider in our lifetime the plague of pornography. How do we control this? What are the standards and the things that you have put in place with you and your family to talk about to make sure that this lust doesn't become uncontrolled, that attraction doesn't turn to uncontrolled lust, and that we can't control our imaginations, we can't control our heart, we can't determine how we're going to appropriate things? That is a determinate thing. That is an incredible thing. And it changes things when we realize that God's expectation is, if we can control our desires in our heart and control our mind, what we think about, the actions will take care of themselves. God's expectation is that people learn to control their desires and their imaginations, their minds, and then everything else will fall into place. Well, there's a few other things then. I want you to go ahead and pause your video and look at verses 17 through 21, and you're going to see a list of other things that the Lord says, look, these are sins that if unrepented of, will keep you from being resurrected in the resurrection of the just, which is the resurrection of the celestial and the terrestrial. So if these sins in verses 17 through 21, if they're not repented of, they cause us to become telestial type beings. All right, go ahead, pause your video, verses 17 through 21. Let's see what you can find. Hey, thanks for studying. Welcome back. I hope you saw several of these sins that the Lord says, look, if these are unrepented of, they're going to limit us in how far we can progress in the resurrection. In fact, we can only go to the celestial kingdom. Now, there's a really interesting thing, because in verse 20, the Lord says, those who overcome by faith and have repented, they're going to go on. See, the celestial kingdom is not full of people who are perfect. It's full of people who are good at repenting and who have overcome their sins because of their faith in Jesus Christ, and they've trusted in him. That's what makes the difference. For instance, I'm just wondering, What are the sins in your life that you have already felt the power of Jesus Christ as you have overcome them? How's this already happened before? And what are the sins that you currently face that you need to overcome through faith in Jesus Christ? If we continue to try and we continue to work at it with the help of Jesus Christ, we will overcome and we'll be worthy of all those things. May we seek that. May we have confidence in the commitment of Jesus Christ. And rather than demanding proof, let's just go forth believing that he's going to keep his covenant with us. And his promise is he will keep his covenant with us and help us overcome all things. Thanks for studying. We'll see you next time.